Hello everybody, my name is RagingRaptor and I welcome you to a new installment of How to Penetrate the VK168.01 Mauerbrecher, the new Tier 8 German premium heavy tank. And I don't want to have a big look at this model right here, because I already looked at it in the quick review, and we are going to have a look in a replay, where our trusty friend Too Much For You from Automotives is helping us, showing what where to penetrate the Mauerbrecher. And for today's installment, we have 4 different tanks plus an additional little tank to explain some more stuff. And those tanks are the T28 F30, as you can see here, the Defender or the Object 252, the Super Conqueror, the Sheridan, and lastly, a little surprise. So well then, let's start with the first tank of the batch, and as you can see, we are having it with the T28 EF30. Why exactly? Because, well, my dear friend Too Much For You does not really have any other low tiered tank, so we decided to take this bugger out into the game. And the important with this tank is it has 120mm of penetration with AP and 161mm of penetration with APCR, meaning the cupola of our almighty Mauerbrecher is 150mm thick, and the MG nest is around, well, 140mm thick, meaning for our friend in the T28 FT, it should be not a big deal penetrating. As you can see, we are racking up some damage right here. The most obvious weak spots are the cupola and the lower and the MG port. For bigger guns with more penetration, the lower plate will also start to be one of those spicy little weak spots. And now I'm trying to show you one of the most annoying things in this tank's weak spot array. Meaning that if you are angling a little bit too much, you will be able to penetrate here because it's only 60mm thick. And here you can see it, it's slightly starting to turn yellow, and suddenly or sooner or later it will start to turn green. This is one of the most obnoxious spots to get hit at if you are playing the Mauerbrecher. And let's be honest, this is not a super over-angled position. This is like an angled position I am usually driving around, and it's nothing compared to a tank like the VK10001P, which have much better side protection and much better lower frontal gear road wheel protection. Right now, we sadly choose a tank which is really not that great to show this, as it's highly inaccurate, but there we go. This is a tier 4 tank with premium shells with 161mm of penetration, penetrating right over there, an angled Mauerbrecher. And well, we are right now going for some more tries and see where we can penetrate. And this is also something unique. If I am angling the turret a little bit too much, this happens. This plate right here is 80mm thick. And behind that, behind the gun mandel, there is no armor. Meaning you will be able to penetrate that incredibly easy. Now we are trying to find some more stats, some more little tricks and quirks to see where can we penetrate. I'm going to speed it up a little bit. Right now we are going back into position. I want to show something like going into a side scraping position here and see if we can hit the lower plate weak spot or the cupola weak spot. And as you can see, even though I am trying to side scrape and trying my best to hide my cupola, it's still showing. Right now I'm still trying to adjust myself. It's really not that easy with that big of a tank, and this is probably the best position you can have with this tank. Right now I am unpenetrable for medium to same tiered opponents, but as soon as I'm again angling too much, you can see the enemies, or well, in this case our T28 with the 60mm gun, with the F30 gun, is able to penetrate this place here. And you can see it's totally green. And this is now AP shells. Beforehand we shot only APCR, and now we try to do it a little bit better. What happens if our mighty Mauerbrecher is showing 90 degrees angle onto his frontal side? You know what is the saddest part? In this case, you can see he's trying to search for a weak spot where he has or is able to shoot his AP shots in it. The cupola is also a bounce, but as soon as I'm going to angle the turret slightly again, he's now searching for a weak spot with the APCR shots, and now you can see it again. Right now, he has the opportunity to penetrate here at certain positions with AP. He could in no other way penetrate us right now, as he has no more shots left. Well then, let's go to the next tank, the defender. So we are back on track, trying to get into position, this time with the defender, or the object 252. One of the, well, let's call it like this, one of the usual tier 8 heavy tanks. And as you can see, he is now trying to shoot on the move with a huge bloom, and he hits the lower plate. The lower plate is a 135mm armor plate with, well, decent enough armor when it is angled correctly. It's around 200 effective armor. So yeah, now we're going back on track into our 50 meters of distance, and well, it's purely green. As you can see right now, he has an effective armor of 170. The lower plate won't be big of a deal. The cupola, as we already established, is being able to be penetrated by tanks like, yeah, a tier 4 tank with gold, 140mm of armor. Now we are trying to do something a little bit different. And now we are trying to penetrate the front of the turret of the Mauerbrecher. Because if he is looking frontally at you, something like this happens. The turret front of the Mauerbrecher is also for same tier opponents if he's angling, obviously rather strong. But if he's not angling, the same thing happens as before with the mouse before it got its ridiculous buff. People will be able to shoot through your cheeks. You have 230mm of armor. It's in a, well, it's in a good slope nevertheless, but it's a huge slope here, which is almost fully and not really angled. The same goes for the gun mantle. The gun mantle is also 230mm thick, nothing behind it, meaning you will get penetrated there and receive full damage. Now, as you can see, we are still trying to find one more weak spot, and obviously the MG nest is one of those weak spots, and we are able to finish off the Mauerbrecher rather quickly. So, in this try, we want to see if we are again able to go into a nice little side scraping position and maybe can penetrate that spot right there, as it is one of those weak spots. As I am in a really good angle, it is an out of bounds angle for calibers up to 180mm. And as soon as I'm angling a little bit too much, you can see it's an immediate penetration hit. And one of the worst thing about this spot right there is that it is affected by the 2 caliber rule. The 2 caliber rule means it's the same with the overmatching rule, but the 2 caliber rule, there we go, means that if your caliber is twice as big as the armor, it gets better normalization, meaning in a steeper angle you can penetrate it. And this is what will most likely happen here. We have a 130 or 122mm gun, and behind that we have a 60mm armor plate. And even though we are in a perfect or rather good side scraping position, we have a quite generous weak spot. And as you can see, there we have it as well. The gun mantlet again, it's in the side. We don't really need to shoot at the cupola. Sure, the cupola is much easier to hit, but don't forget, this is a weak spot tier 4 tanks can penetrate. Right now, again, we made the mistake of taking a tank with a really inaccurate gun, but this shot even is one through the gun mantlet in general. There's nothing even saying anything against it. Yes, it's kind of sad if you think about it that the Mauerbrecher is being so easily penetrated. This is it with the defender. Let's move on to the Super Conqueror. So, right now we are going into position with our Mauerbrecher, and Too Much For You is in his Super Conqueror, one of the usual tier 10 heavy tanks. And in this little example or this try, I want to show to you what is happening if the Mauerbrecher is deciding to try to side scrape and try to bounce off enemy tier 10 vehicles. First off, let's have a look if we can penetrate him below the tracks. This time it doesn't work, but if he rolls high enough with a high penetrating hit, he can actually penetrate there. Meaning, yes, tier 9 and tier 10 TDs are able to penetrate you in such an angle, which is still a rather steep angle. Luckily for us, the in-game mod is telling us how much armor effective it is. It's 183 armor, so you can see right now it is orange for him, meaning he needs to make a high roll. Now, let's do what is happening when, for example, an enemy wants to shoot at us, or we want to shoot at the enemy. We immediately need to turn back our turret, as well as we already established, our gun mantle is simply not sufficient enough. The enemy has no problems penetrating us through the cheeks, through the frontal gun mantlet without a problem. So now I was like, yeah, he can still penetrate us there, and he told me that on the channel, and even did it. And I was just like, okay, let's try to do something which is a usual mouse tactic, which is over-angling. Here we already have a little bit of a better angle. It was also probably he got a little bit unlucky. Now we are talking, and I was just like, yes, now I should be unpenetrable for the enemy. And he said, well, yes, kind of, but it's still showing me that there are spots where it can still be penetrated. I was just like, nah, man, you're not going to penetrate me. And we will see, those are spots which tier 10 heavy tanks can penetrate after a certain amount of time. Sure, tier 8 heavy tanks and tier 8 tanks will in such a position don't penetrate the Mauerbrecher. But you can see a tier 10 heavy is able to. So, the last ordinary tank is our mighty Sheridan, which we decide to get into position, and this tank, the Sheridan, has exactly 236mm of APCR penetration, meaning he has a roughly 40% chance of penetrating us through the gun mantle. Or actually, it should be able to penetrate us 50% of the time, but that's not really in the case, it looks like. But here we go, he bounced us twice in the gun mantlet, we showed a little bit about it, and there we go, suddenly he starts to penetrate once again. Still, 230mm of armor won't hold off anything. But the fun and most engaging thing which is coming will be that he is actually able to penetrate our upper front plate, which is sadly only 180mm thick with heat. And there we go, he is reloading once more APCR to see where he can penetrate it. He is making me down to one shot. His heat has 280mm of armor and he has no normalization with heat. Now he's loading the heat shell, and if he gets up close and personal, and he's not even using a lot of gun, well, he's losing a little bit of gun depression right there. And well, now we are going on a little bit distance again to show you what I mean with the heat penetration hits. Oh no, sorry. First we wanted to do some ramming test to see how much damage I'm able to do, because the tank is super heavy. And there we go, simply through the upper front plate with heat. Fun and engaging, right? 280mm of heat penetration is not that much. And there are tanks around with 340 standard heat penetration. But let's go to our final guest in this penetration test. So, the last tank in our thrilling conclusion to how to penetrate the VK1601 Mauerbrecher is the mighty 183. Why exactly the mighty 183? I already told you about it. The lower side armor of the Mauerbrecher is 60mm thick, meaning 60 times 3 is 180, and everything above 180 has auto pen there. And there we go. We penetrate our mighty Mauerbrecher with a D-drag. As you can see how our tracks are laying. There's no hole in the lower plate. We penetrate it from here, and this is in a super hard angle. So yeah, that's it. You can penetrate the Mauerbrecher in an auto pen angle through the frontal road wheel, which is actually super sad. Now we're trying to do it in an even higher angle, but now sadly we are not able to exactly hit where we want to hit, which is obviously a little bit sad, but yeah, what can we do about that? And as you can see, he is skipping around a little bit on the upper front plate, searching, and you can see he has no problem penetrating the upper front plate. 310mm of penetration against 270 effective millimeters of armor. That's actually kind of sad if you think about it. you won't be able to do this against the enemy tier 8 VK. And yes, I'm still trying to do video to do some more little trolls here if I am able to penetrate him through certain positions. And here we go, one last shot, badoom, the VK is donezo. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, let me know in the comment section below. And yeah, if you liked it, let me know which other tank I should try to review with, well, how to penetrate. If it is the VK, if it is the IS-4, if it is another tank, just let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.